In this video, I wanted to share a command line tool that I wrote that allows you to losslessly merge chaptered footage taken by certain cameras like GoPro cameras, for example. There's also other action cameras that do a similar thing where they split up a long video recording into individual files of a certain size, and then basically you can assemble them in a video editor, and then they will be seamless. They will play seamlessly. There won't be any interruption at the point of the split, but you'll still have like individual files. So the script that I wrote allows you to instead of having individual files, you can just like import your footage as a single file and have no loss in quality. The data is directly copied without any loss in quality. So that's what I'm going to be showing you today. Here's the GitHub for this command line tool. It's called dechapter. So in this video, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about how to install this tool, because all the instructions are provided here in this README file. So just look through these instructions. It's pretty straightforward to do everything, and it walks you through all of the steps. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the tool itself. So over here I have the repository on my over here in this top pane. I have just the copy of over here in the top pane. I have the local copy. Over here in the top pane, I have a local copy of the repository, and these are the files that you'll get once you clone the repository yourself. But I'll just go ahead and clear the screen here, and I will open the man page for this tool in this top pane so that we can refer to it as I explain things. So here we go. Here we have the man page open, and over here in the bottom pane, I have a folder with some sample footage that I took for a tutorial about flight gear, the flight simulator that I was doing. Just kind of finished recording a couple of days ago. Basically, this is the kind of footage that dechapter is intended to help you put together into single files. So this kind of like structure, you can think of it as like two SD cards plugged into your computer and like mounted to certain directories, basically. This is how you can think about this. I have two of them, so I can just like open the files real quick to show you what it is. It's basically just one recording that consists of like 5 chapters, and another that also consists of 5 chapters, because I was recording 2 cameras at the same time to record my the inputs that I make on my gaming controllers. So yeah, that's what this is gonna be our sample footage that we'll be testing dechapter with and learning about it, about how it works. So let's learn about the most basic usage of dechapter. The most basic usage is to pass to it any number of files or directories. How does it process those files or directories? So it basically looks through everything. When you give it files, it looks through all of the files. When you give it directories, it looks through all of the files in those directories and in all the subdirectories of those directories. So in the end, it basically looks through all the files, because it converts the directories to all the files in those directories and in those subdirectories. And then what it does is it looks at the pattern of of the is contained in the file names, and by analyzing that pattern, it identifies the files that belong to a set that belong together and that are videos, and that are and then it losslessly merges those recordings to a single file. So let's take a look at how this works. So I'll just type dechapter, and then I want to just give it everything in the current directory, because in the current directory we have all of the files contained within it, like in its subdirectories, so it will have access to that. So I can just pass it a dot for the current directory and press enter, and it will start converting those videos. So let's wait for that to finish. So, okay, let's see what we have. So now you can see that there is an additional file that appeared here called basically that is named similarly to the original, but it has this dash merged at the end. And then the extension is also lowercase, because I think that the uppercase MP4 is just like not very convenient, because you don't usually see it in any other circumstance unless it's a GoPro footage. So let's open those files in MPV and see what they look like. So I'll just do this merge.mp4, and we'll get to see both of the files. So you can see that now they're long, 53 minutes long each one, and so basically the footage was merged successfully, and it is the exact same quality as the original, because the data was just copied and concatenated together. So that's all that happened there. So that's the most basic usage of dechapter. Now let's take a look at the other things that it can do. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete those merged files that we just created. So okay, we've deleted that. Let's say we didn't want the files to be saved in the same directory as the original, because maybe you just plugged in your SD card and you don't really want to get all of these split files from the SD card, because you just want the already merged version just to import it into your video editor directly and work with that. So how do we change the directory? It's very simple. You use a -d option, and then you give it the directory to save the files to. So let's say I want to save them into my current directory. So I'll just pass a dot to -d, and then the process begins all over again, but now it's saving thanks to the current directory. You can see where it saves the file over here in the output. Okay, so it finished merging the files, so let's see what we have now. Now we have these files in our current directory, but basically the rest is the same. So we have the footage of the same length here, and two parts of it. So there we go. So this is setting the directory. You can also give it a kind of a directory that does not exist, in which case its behavior will depend on the option, this dest-dir-create. So by default, it will ask you if you want to create a directory if it does not exist. You can also set it to always or never. If you set it to never, then it will only do the merging if there is a directory there. And if you set it to always, it will just silently, or like it will just create the directory without asking you. And dest-dir-no-create is the same as dest-dir-create equals never. So that's how that works. So let's try that out. Let me delete these files again so that we don't have duplicates. So we're back to the original set, and let's give it a directory. Let's call it test, and I'll press enter, and it asks me the destination directory test does not exist, created. And I can pass Y. I can also press enter to just cancel. If I press enter, it cancels. The N is the capital, so that's the default. I can answer Y for yes, and then it will just create the directory and do the thing all over again. Alright, so here we go. Now the files are in the directory called test. So yeah, same stuff. So that's essentially the basic usage plus one option to change the destination directory. So now let's take a look at some more stuff. So it also allows you to do a what is usually called a dry run. So to basically preview what it's gonna do without actually doing anything. So to test this out, let's see what we do. What we have here. So I'll delete that test directory that we just created, and we're back to the original set of files. So in order to do a dry run, you can pass -X. So that will just kind of simulate what it's gonna do, but it's not actually gonna do anything. So it will ask you this thing, but that just kind of it's not actually doing that operation. It just gives you a preview of what it is going to do. So you can see that it says here simulating, that's the first message, and the last message is simulation complete. So that's how you can distinguish a dry run output from a non-dry run output. So yeah, the dry run is the -X. So if we take a look at the man page here, if you find the -X, it's over here. So the long version is no-exec. I'm now realizing that I should have kept that directory for a bit longer, because I wanted to show you an option that controls what it does if it tries to write an output file, but the file with the same name already exists. So let me just kind of run this again, just so that we have some files to test it against. Okay, so it's done. Here we go. So we have our files back. Now let's see what happens if I just try to run it again. So if I just press enter, it will ask me, do you want to override because that file already exists, or not? So if I say no, or if I just press enter, it will cancel and not do anything. I'm not gonna just run it again, because it'll just overwrite those files with the same content. So let's skip that. So if you want to tell it to overwrite the files without asking you, then you can pass the -Y option twice. I'll explain why it's twice in a moment, but that's how you do it. So if to overwrite the files without asking, you pass Y twice, just -YY. And then press enter, and it will no longer be asking me. It will just overwrite them. So I'll come back to the reason why the Y option needs to be passed twice here in a moment. Let me just first explain another kind of fairly basic option that allows you to change the name of the output file. So right now our files were named like this. So there is an option that is called --output, or -O for short, that allows you to rename, to set the name for the output file. And it uses this format that basically it's a string with placeholders. This format itself is described in detail in this section, placeholder format. It's at the bottom of the man page. You can take a look at later yourself. There's no need to really go into a ton of detail about this here. We can just take a look at kind of a simple usage by using these different placeholders. So the default value, as you can see, is this percent and then and parentheses in curly braces name. So the placeholder name merged. Name here refers to all the placeholders are described over here. So it says that it's the base name of the original first chapter file without the extension. So the original first chapter file would be this GOPR 3343.mp4. So it takes this name, and that's what it replaces this percent name with. So it replaces it with the name of the first chapter without the extension. So we could basically change the the output file name to something else. For example, we could say, let's say we don't want the dash merged. We could just go ahead and set percent name .mp4, and I'll just do the dry run so that just to save some time, because we're only interested in kind of the results. And the result, as you can see here, that it would create a file that is called this. So it would create a file with this name, which is just kind of the base name of that first chapter. So that's how this works. You can also use the ID, and an ID is a string that occurs in the name of each chapter file that identifies those chapter files as belonging to a set, as belonging to the same recording, that they form a set. So for example, like in this set, the ID would be 9489. So that's the ID. You could use that as well. So if I set this, for example, to ID, then the file gets named 3343 and 9489. So that's what an ID is. We can also use date, which can be pretty useful. So if you set it to date, it will extract the date of the recording from the metadata of the original recording, and it will put it into the file name. You can also change the format that how the date is formatted by adjusting this option. I'm not going to go into this here, but it uses the date command to format the date, and it's pretty easy to kind of to change it here. Even this example of like this default value, you can see that there are just placeholders for each of the numbers, and then you can rearrange them and insert like your own separators and stuff like that. And you can view the man page for the date command for a full list of these format sequences. So like for a full list of what you can put into that date string. So that's the date format option. And finally, there's also one more placeholder, which is kind of a unique one, because its value is the same as what the name of the file would be if you didn't change the -o option. So like, let me just show you what I mean by this. So basically, if I just set it to %s, and yeah, I want to do the dry run. So the file name is the default, so it didn't change. But now what it allows me to do is it allows me, for example, to append something to that name. For example, maybe I'm importing footage camera by camera, and I could call it like cam1 dash something. It would make more sense for me to actually, for example, give it only like the directory cam1, so that I could call that file cam1 dash GoPro 3343 merged mp4. So and I'm highlighting this is actually a temporary file that it creates. Here's the actual file, so .mp4. So this is what the %s placeholder does. Just kind of it exists there just for this exact purpose, just to append something to the output file name. Now, I also wanted to talk a little bit about configuring dechapter, because it allows you to change the default values of different options, for example, and also do some other things. So let's take a look. Dechapter uses a configuration file that is normally located in home.config dechapter, and the file itself is called config.bash. So you could manually create this file and then start adding variables to it and setting them to certain values, and the variables that you can set in that file are listed here in the configuration section. And you can see that some variables correspond to command line options and some variables are configuration file only. But there's actually no need to do this stuff manually, because there is a --config option that allows you to generate the configuration file if it's not there already, and if it's there, it allows you to open it easily for editing. So let's take a look at how that works. So right now I don't have any configuration file there, so I will go ahead and generate it. So I'll type dechapter --config. So, and then I can just press enter, and it generated a configuration file because it wasn't there. And so then it asks me if I want to open it in a text editor. I can just press enter because yes is the default. So if I press enter, and now it opens it in my text editor. So the text editor, it chooses, you need to have the visual and editor, or like one of these environment variables, set to your preferred text editor for it to recognize it. If you don't have any of those set, it will use Nano as the text editor. So that's how that works. This is essentially the functionality of this --config option in a nutshell. There's also more information about it here in the man page. So basically, this is the configuration file that you get once you generate it. So you can see that everything is commented out, and it's basically ready for you to start changing things. For example, maybe you want to have the destination directory always be the current working directory. You can set dest-dir to dot, so you don't need to enter it manually on the command line every time. And for example, maybe I don't want to be prompted for like dest-dir-create. I can change it here as well. So basically you can see this is just all of the same options that we went through, only represented as variables. So one thing that I want to mention here is that if an option is a value that can be either true or false, we represent true here by setting the variable to 1, and we represent false by setting it to nothing, to an empty string. So you can recognize options like this usually by there being two variants. One is just like, for example, --exec, and the opposite is --no-exec, so true and false. Therefore, if the variable is set to like opt-exec1, it means that it's set to exec when it's set to 1, and it's set to no-exec when it's set to nothing. So let's test this out. So now I set the destination directory to dot, and opt-exec I disabled it. So now let me see, what was my kind of recent test example. So let me just remove this -d, and I don't need the $X anymore, because yeah, let me just run dechapter dot, because that will just run it on all of the files that we have here. So here's what we have right now, and I'll just run dechapter dot, and we'll see what happens. So now it basically it simulates the thing without me having to tell it to simulate. So it simulates by default now, and it puts the files to the dot directory, to the current directory. So we've successfully reconfigured dechapter. Now it's using those configured values as its default values. So now how do you sort of like run it now? Because we have set it to simulate by default. So this is why there's two variants for such options, so that we can always use the opposite one depending on how we configure it. So now we can use the -x option to run the operation for real. So here we go, and it's running. I'm actually gonna cancel here, and I'm gonna mention something as well. So when it cancels, it cleans up after itself. You can see that it says operation canceled, cleaning up. So the cleaning up refers to the fact that it deleted the partially created file, and also there is a temporary file that it creates that looks like this. It's a text file that is needed for ffmpeg to put all this stuff together. So it erases that stuff if you cancel the operation, so that you don't end up with just kind of incomplete files and like some random stuff here. So it cleans up after itself. But yeah, we were talking about the --exec. Now let's see, what else can we talk about here? Yeah, let's also talk about this. There's also exec-print. So exec-print, we've actually already seen it in action. We just haven't talked about it explicitly. This is what we can see here. You can see here that when it runs the simulation, it outputs the commands that it would run if they were run for real. But you don't have to. This doesn't have to happen only when it runs the simulation. You can also have them have it tell you what it is executing as it is executing things. So let me actually restore the original configuration, at least with regards to the opt-exec option. So I'll do that, and let me clear the screen. So let's first run it for a second without changing anything. So this is what it does if we don't specify any additional options. And now let's set exec-print. So when we set exec-print, now we can see all of the commands that it is executing. So let's let it run and see what happens. So we can see that there was a temporary file removed here. Basically, you can identify these lines where it tells you that it did something by those lines start with this $sign. So yeah, basically here we go. So we see all of the ffmpeg commands with all of the arguments, just exactly what it did, and also all of the removals of the temporary files and anything else that might do. So for example, if I cancel an operation, we can see what happens when we cancel. So let's say overwrite, and let me just cancel it. So it said operation canceled, cleaning up, and we can see that it removed the temporary file, which was just this text file, and then it removed what it was, the file it was writing to, because it was an incomplete file. So yeah, that's what happens when we use exec-print. So we've just used exec-print without any argument set, and we can see here that always, which is one of the possible values of this option, is enclosed in square brackets. So that means that this is the default value when you don't specify any arguments. So what we just ran is equivalent to exec-print always. So that's what this means. Now there's also auto and never. So auto is the default behavior. We can see that it is the default behavior over here. And over here it says that when it is set to auto, it prints commands only when performing a dry run. So basically that's what we saw by default. By default it only tells you the commands when it does the dry run, otherwise it doesn't print them. So this is how exec-print auto works. Now let's also take a look at this second X here. and the second capital X for the exec and no exec options. The second X that is enclosed in square brackets just simply means that you can pass this option the second time, and then there is some kind of unique behavior to that when you pass it twice. And then they're listed over here individually as to what the behavior is. So we can see here that the single X just performs the specified behavior of this option, which just refers to this basically, execute commands as opposed to performing a dry run. But for the double X, it says that in addition to performing the specified behavior of this option, it flips the decision value of exec-print. So what does this mean? This simply means that the outcome with regards to whether or not the command will be printed will be the opposite. We just saw that exec-print can be set to auto, or it can be always or never. Like always never just simply means that you manually tell it to either do it or not do it. And auto, there's a decision that the program itself makes. So basically the decision value is the outcome, regardless of whether you set it or the program decided it. So what it allows you to do is to print commands in a circumstance where the configuration suggests otherwise. So like you configure things a certain way and you kind of tend to just like use your preferred configuration. So let's say you're using the default configuration, and it doesn't print commands by default. But then sometimes you do want to see commands. So you can just say XX. It means that execute and also flip the decision value of exec-print. So it's normally not printing anything, so it will print it. So that's what that does. I hope it makes sense. It's kind of like might be a bit arcane, but the reason I made it this way is because I didn't want to waste a letter on exec-print, because I want to have the P letter free for something else. When you write command line tools, what tends to happen is that you run out of letters pretty quickly. And also you kind of tend to want to stay consistent across all of your different command line tools. So like if I write another tool that uses similar options, I want to use the same kind of letters. So this set of options, exec, no exec, exec-print, and exec no print, is something that I can see will be a feature that I will want to implement in many different command line tools that I write. So I don't want to kind of assign to it too many letters that are pretty common to use, and the P letter is very common to use. The X, I just want to reserve it for this. So, and it has this behavior, so I can use it only like one letter and its capital variant, and it will cover two options, and this allows me to have a standard way of implementing this thing in different command line tools, and it will be consistent and it will be kind of easy to both maintain and also to use. So that's why I chose this approach here. Now I also said that we would come back to the -y option, and we looked at -yy, which always overwrites. So what does the single y do? And as you can see here, the single y refers to the prompt behavior, which is the default behavior. That's why I skipped it at first, because it was just kind of like not the right time to get into that. So basically, if we could what we could do is we could go ahead and open our configuration file, and we could find the overwrite option and uncomment it, and we could set it to always, for example. So now it would always overwrite the default files. Let's see, let's test it out. So I'll just run dechapter again, so we have some files to overwrite, and we're running it with the -XX option, so we are seeing the commands as well. Alright, here we go. So now we have some files. So in the configuration file, we've set opt overwrite to always. So now it's going to be overwriting by default. So if I run this again, it will just start overwriting right away. But now if I set the -y option, a single y, it will start asking me. So basically, the idea here is that it sort of like goes like it's 3 steps. Dash uppercase y means no, like do not overwrite. A single y, it's sort of like overwrite but ask, and then double y, just overwrite it, don't ask me. It's like it kind of serves a double purpose of kind of making sure that you don't enter -y, a single -y accidentally, and then it will overwrite something you don't want it to overwrite, and allows to have these additional shortcuts in cases where an option has multiple values, while also not wasting short option letters. And finally, in this last part of the video, I wanted to quickly talk about some of the settings that you can set in the configuration file but that don't have any command line equivalents, that they are a configuration file only, like it says here. So you can configure 2 things here. One of them is called default non-opts. So non-opts refers to non-option arguments. These are any arguments other than options or arguments to options, in other words values that you pass to them. So in our case it is a file or dir, and they are listed here in the non-options section. This is not like a standard man page section, but I find that it makes a lot of sense to do things this way, so I use it. So in our case it refers to the files and directories that we pass to dechapter. So let's go back here, and default non-options are applied when you don't pass any non-option arguments to dechapter. So basically, if you don't pass any files or directories to it, whatever you set in that configuration value will be applied. So it allows you to have kind of a default location to pull recordings from. So for example, let's say that you would do it like this: media user SD card 1, media user SD card 2, for example. So for testing purposes, let's just set it to the the current directory here, because we have all of our examples in our current directory. So now let's see, so what do we have there? Okay, so let's now run it just as is, and you can see that it's picking up the files in the current directory, and I haven't passed any arguments to it. Let me well, let's let it run through. So here we go. So what happened here is it ran as though I passed a dot to it, because the default array is set to a dot. So that's how that works. Now there's also this conf file name spec variable, which allows you to set custom patterns for dechapter to use when it when it looks for the files and identifies the sets of files that belong together. So what I was able to configure it to do out of the box is to recognize recordings made by GoPro cameras, because I only own a couple of GoPro cameras, but I looked online and I saw that, for example, DJI cameras also do chaptering. So potentially this could be configured for any camera, and if you would like to do something like this, if you own another camera and it also does chaptering, you can follow the instructions in this section under conf file name spec, and you should be able to do it. There's also these examples in the default configuration file for the GoPro, so that you can kind of refer to them, and together with these instructions this should make sense. But if you run into any issues, feel free to go ahead and ask a question on this project's GitHub page. We have discussions over here which are for ideas and questions, and we also have issues which are for bug reports. But when it comes to this video, this is it. We've covered basically all the topics there are to cover when it comes to using dechapter. I hope you like this new tool, and I hope it helps you out in streamlining your video editing process. It certainly did so for me, because I very much prefer to have my recording in a single file, and it's much easier to import it into a video editor when it is in a single file. Because if you have it in multiple files, then you have basically kind of these additional cuts at random points which interfere with your own cuts, and that adds like more kind of mess to your edit and complicates things unnecessarily. So it's much nicer to have it in a single file. And since there is no loss in quality when you perform an operation like this, I think this is a pretty good solution. So I certainly found this tool very helpful, and I hope it helps you out as well. So this is it for this video. If you would like to support this channel, you can do it at ko-fi.com/linguisticmind. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.